back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, what do you got for us this week?
Oh, we've got a little bit, not a whole lot. As opposed to last week, we had just an avalanche of news and different things to talk about, but not as much today for this week. But we still got a decent amount we can run through here.
Yep. First off, we'll go through a couple of the milestones that guys have hit in the last week. There's a couple. We got David Perron hitting 300 career goals.
Boo.
We got Nathan MacKinnon also scoring 300 career goals. Just got his 300th tonight. We got Brady. I was wondering if you were going to use that.
I don't have a boo. I don't have a boo one, so I had to save it and just do the clap one for McKinnon. It's crazy to think he's actually only at 300 goals so far in his career.
Yeah, kind of wild, but at the same time, I mean, he's been playing for 10 years, so
yeah,
10 years averages about 30 goals a year. Makes sense. He's not known as a goal scorer as much as a
that is true. That is true.
He also took a bit to really come into his own with the Avalanche. He's obviously scored the majority of those 300, I imagine, in the last 5.
Yeah. I think with McKinnon, it's also interesting because we're kind of at a point now with him where I know he's always been up in the, the talks of like one of the best in the league, but I think we're kind of near in a spot right now where we can almost say as of right now, within the current state of the NHL and the players and whatnot, where Nathan MacKinnon's a top three player.
Yeah.
He's always kind of been
put him in there. I would definitely put him in my top 3.
Yeah, because he's always kind of been, top 5, maybe top 3. He's never once cracked my top 3, but we're kind of getting to a point where like you can make the argument that he's definitely within that top 3 now. So that's good for him. And, obviously he doesn't give a shit about what I think. Like I don't give a shit about what I think, but he's come a long way over the last, couple years, and some guys are taking some steps back. So I think he's probably in that as of right now in the current league. I think he's in that top 3.
Yeah,
so
I think
just wanted to throw that in there because Colorado's got some other issues.
There's it really depends how much you value defensemen, because depending on who you ask, Cale Makar is like the 5th, 6th, 7th best player in the league, because they got quite a few forwards, mainly centermen, above him. Or a lot of people are like, oh, it's obvious, it's McDavid then Makar. So
Makar doesn't he doesn't sniff my top 3.
Yeah, he's very good, but at least right now, from like this season to the beginning of say last year, I think for me it's pretty solidly McDavid, and then whatever order you want to put MacKinnon and Kucherov.
Yeah, I've got McDavid, MacKinnon, Kucherov as my top 3 as of right now. Just because if you're gonna throw a defenseman in there, yeah, sure, Makar has the point totals, but again, then people always look to the recency bias. So then Erik Karlsson beats him offensively, and defensively, I would still take a Roman Josi, a Victor Hedman. So it's like, you can't. I can't make an argument for Makar being in the top 3, let alone top 5, because you have to view it from a whole standpoint. And the way guys are going right now, Crosby's in that top 5 still, which is crazy to say. Being at his age, he's still in there. So, McKinnon just got a hat trick tonight. I just saw it pop up.
Oh,
so
well, there you go.
He just builds to the case.
Yeah. Well, when I was just saying that he got 300 career goals, I believe 299 and 300 were his first 2 goals tonight. So he's probably
is that just from now. That's just from time. Oh yeah, so that would just be that'd be
tonight.
301.
Like the game wasn't even over.
Yeah, so that'd be So there you go. He's at 301 now.
It is.
He couldn't even stay
right now for the Art Ross. currently.
he couldn't even stay on 300 for the night. He's like, you know what? Let's just get to 301 and get the ball rolling to the next one on the road to 400.
Who else do we got? So we got Perron, we got McKinnon, we got Braden Point tonight as well. Reached 500 career points, so good for him. He had 2 goals and an assist, I believe. This happened the other night. This isn't as big as the other ones, but Kaprizov got his 7th OT winner, which is already the most in Minnesota Wild history.
Yeah, and that's just going to continue to grow over the years now.
I don't think it's crazy to say that he's already the best player they've ever had in their franchise. They have not had a lot of guys that stick around for a long time. Like, Zach Parise was there for quite a while. Ryan Suter was there for a bit, but they've had all-stars. They've never had superstars on their team, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
I think
he's one of those first game-breaking players that they've got. They've got quite a few guys
still
from other
not
teams.
number one. I think Mikko Koivu is still that guy. But I think you give it, maybe even just a year or 2. I think Kaprizov then takes that reign for them. But I think just in terms of everything Koivu did for the Wild franchise and whatnot, I think
that's fair.
It's a bit too early to say Kaprizov, but in the fact that he's locked in long term and what he's already done, there's no doubt in my mind that by the end of his tenure with the Wild, he'll be number one and he'll hold on to that spot for a long time. That being said, what do we got next here?
We got a few different things. Is there anything on our list jumping out that you want to go to first?
Not overly. There's nothing that's immediately let's talk about it. All of them are kind of just little minor things. Like we said, it's not like last week where it was NHL Fight Night or any crazy headlines or anything. Just kind of little small things from around the league, but still noteworthy enough that we're going to talk about. So I'm good to start wherever.
On the note of that, then I guess first we'll talk about Dylan Larkin's scathing comments on how he said it's hard to feel safe the way the NHL does discipline. And I found it funny because he did say very specifically that last week in the league was really eye-opening to him and a lot of other players, which is funny because that's exactly what we said. I mean, the NHL can pretend not, but everyone saw how bad the discipline was in the league last week.
Mm-hmm. I think I would take it more serious from anyone else except Dylan Larkin, because I know he's alluding to the fact that, Matthew Joseph and Parker Kelly weren't suspended for what they did, and I'm still on the wagon of I don't believe that they should have been. So, I get Larkin's frustration. Again, anytime a player, if you get knocked out cold, you're asking for answers and why doesn't anyone get suspended? But I feel like the only guy in that whole sequence that deserved to be suspended was Perron, and he was. So I think that the Department of Player Safety did just fine on that account, but it's the other ones, especially the Nick Cousins Gabranson thing. I think Cousins should have got suspended in general. I think Gabranson should have got suspended more than one game. So that's the game that really is puzzling for suspensions. But in terms of that Ottawa Detroit game, I think they did it just fine. So
yeah,
I get what Larkin's saying. It is eye-opening.
I definitely think he's talking about a lot of the games throughout the week.
I just don't like that hard to feel safe comment, because he's alluding to the Detroit Ottawa game, which again, I think if it's something exactly like that happens to an Ottawa player and they're knocked out, you don't even see Larkin comment on it. You don't see him saying it's hard to feel safe. Like, I get it's because he was the one that was unfortunately knocked out as a result, but it's not a suspendable play. It's a battle in front of the net, and you just happen to get knocked off balance into a guy that's kind of coming in front there to join the mix. Like, it's just
No, I
when you
definitely
look at the league, it's just it's not a
I don't know
suspendable
if he's
offense.
necessarily talking about his play though. Like if
I
I'm
think I think it is just by him saying hard to feel safe. I feel like he's kind of alluding
why do you think
to.
hard to feel safe does that? Because like
I just feel like he's
if I'm
alluding
even
to
Steven
what happened to
Stamkos
him.
and I watch what Nick Cousins did, I would feel less safe playing in the league that doesn't suspend that.
Yeah, I feel like it's just because Larkin was the one that was at the brunt end of probably the nastiest injury that took place throughout the last week. So
Mhm.
my initial thoughts is he's kind of alluding to, his situation more than anything. I feel like he's not, just in my opinion, I don't feel like he's necessarily commenting on, what's happening around the league. He's more focusing on his team and what's taking place within their games.
He did
But
specifically say
but
that the league overall in the last week had a problem with discipline. Obviously, within that week is when his incident also happened.
I would say
I
more
think
than
the
the
three or
league, I would
four
say the
big ones were
refs.
within 2 days.
I would
But
say more than the league, I would say the refs. Like, I feel like the only thing the Department of Player Safety maybe missed out on is giving a suspension in general to Nick Cousins. And then I think Gabranson should have got more. Like, I get, the refs didn't do anything. So he's like, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. But I think he still took it a bit too far.
yeah,
And you know what? I'm not even blaming Gabranson because at the end of the day, you know what? I kind of back what he did. The fact that he got run from behind the way he did and wanted to fight Cousins right then there. And he challenged him to an open fight right then and there. Let's go. And Cousins decides to turtle and then, kind of beak at him from the penalty box when they're in there. I mean, Nick Cousins kind of brought it on himself, and Gabranson's like, hey, you know what? Refs aren't gonna do it. So you know what? It's up to me.
yeah,
I still think both deserved suspensions.
yeah. I would have given
Um,
maybe a 2 game suspension to Goodbranson, and like honestly, that Nick Cousins hit is really bad looking back. I'd give him like
yeah,
minimum six games.
yeah. I think more than I think it's just the refs, man. Like, just it's the inconsistency from the refs that has been the problem. I don't think it's the Department of Player
It's definitely
Safety.
leading to more violent plays, but I think either the league or the refs doing a better job would stop it a decent bit at least.
Yeah,
But
y-
yeah, I really think both need to pick up their game, and it's nice to see any players talking about it because like somebody's got to hold these guys
yeah. It,
accountable
it at
because
least
right now
creates
they're just
that
clocking in and
discussion.
getting a paycheck.
Yeah, at least with Larkin's comments, it does create that discussion a bit more surrounding it, which is good. But
Yeah.
I hope he's not referring to his situation because I think in terms of the way that the league handled it, I think was just fine.
Mhm.
So that's just my opinion. Other people obviously will feel differently. I know Detroit fans very heavily feel differently, and that's fair. Like, that's your players, so I totally get that. But I think in terms of just an outside perspective, I think that situation in itself was handled
I think the suspension's over
properly.
there. What actually did Perron get for a suspension? Do you remember?
He got 6 games,
He did get 6 games. That's a good amount.
which
Like
I think is setting a good precedent, especially the
much better
fact that
than past precedent too. Like before that
because
would have got 1 or 2 games minimum
well, and that's the
or
thing.
max.
People's
Like
people's complaint was, Perron's got no history with suspensions or anything. But I'm like, that's good though. That, like, it shouldn't be like, oh, you get to go and cross check a guy in
yeah,
the neck or the side of the head and punch him, and it's 1 or 2 games because you've been a good boy. It's like, no, you do something that's very clearly trying to take out a player long term and injure them. You should damn well get
yeah,
that 6+ games. So I think that was,
yeah.
if
A first time
anything,
offender should get 6 games. If like Tom Wilson went out and did that, throw 20 games at him. Like
yeah.
if they are a repeat offender, they should get way more. But that doesn't mean we should be giving tiny suspensions to dudes for heinous acts like cross-checking a dude in the mouth when he's not even looking.
Yeah, like it's like Larkin says it's hard to feel safe, but I bet Zub feels a lot more safe for knowing that if a
Yeah,
guy's
he was
going
just
to
standing
cross
there.
check him in the neck or the head, that guy's going to get a hefty suspension. So it really just it just depends on what way you want to look at it from, or what side of the scenario you're on. So
Yeah.
but I
While
do
we're
like the way that the player safety is, kind of going in the trajectory for the most part. Like it's not
going in the
perfect,
right
you know that,
direction. You just
but
wish it would go a bit quicker.
they're
But
kind of taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
yeah.
Like they're moving in the right direction, but they are making, decisions that are kind of moving them back a little bit. So, but it's still going in the right direction.
Yeah. While we're talking about Detroit, I just want to throw out there. So we are recording this maybe an hour, not even after the 5-4 win Tampa Bay over the Vegas Golden Knights. And I just want to pose this to Detroit fans. Do you guys have a massive problem with Vegas? I was in the Reddit game day thread, and it was all Tampa Bay, all Vegas, and a weird amount of Detroit fans. There was like no other team flares in there. There was a lot of Detroit fans, and they all wanted Tampa to win so bad. And we're fighting Detroit right now for a playoff spot. So it made me very confused. So I'm wondering, like, did they injure one of their guys at some point? Do they just not like them because they, how do they keep staying under the cap in Vegas? I'm if we have any Detroit fans listening, I'd love to know your thoughts on that because I found that very curious.
Well, I'll make it very clear how I feel about Vegas. I'm no stranger to that. I'm very open how I feel about them.
Oh yeah,
That's interesting though.
There was
That
one or two Sharks fans that were happy about it.
That's interesting though. That Detroit fans
they
are kind
especially
of
seem
back
to
in
love
Tampa when they're kind of
I'm not
battling
sure,
in the playoff picture there together.
Yeah. And you know what? I have a bit of a soft spot for the Red Wings, so I do kind of get it. We made a decent amount of trades. Their head coach is our old offensive coordinating coach. We've
Stevie
moved quite a
Y
few players.
was,
Stevie Y, like there's definitely a decent bit of shared history, but I'm wondering if it's just that or if Vegas really rubbed them the wrong way at some point.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wasn't even really aware of that.
We got McDavid tonight. Pretty out and openly. Not actually just McDavid, but all of the leadership group on the Edmonton Oilers using Pride tape tonight during New Jersey's Pride Night.
Oh yeah, I saw a highlight.
That's always just fantastic to see. Yeah,
I did see something about that. So good on Edmonton. Again, it's one of those things. It's like it is what it is. The way that teams and players go about it now. Like we can't expect it to be universal. All we can do is kind of just highlight and praise the guys and the players that will take a stance and still be like, hey, you know what? I'm still going to take part, even though the league doesn't feel that I should, or other players feel like I shouldn't. Like I'm going to do it because that's the way that I want to go about it. So
yeah. Do you want to grab any one of these next ones? I think we got three or four.
I mean, the interesting one is the whole Nolan Patrick situation. Like, reports come out and say he's retired. And then Elliot Friedman wants to, hop on an interview and on a call with him. And Nolan Patrick respectfully declined, but just says, like, I'm with my family right now, but I've not retired. I still think he does retire. Like, I know he's not officially retired, but I think he still ends up retiring just because, I mean, he hasn't played in over like a year now. the injuries, like it's not even injuries, but just like the concussions and the
So
history
many
and
concussions.
all that, just it adds up. And I think that's just more than anything gonna lead to his eventual retirement. So even though he's not officially retired, I think it kind of leads to that at some point here now.
Yeah, I doubt he's gonna play again. Like, obviously, I'd love to see him come back and have a great career, but like, it's getting to the point where you're almost hoping he doesn't, strictly because you don't want to see any more concussions. You don't want to see him in the future just be another CTE statistic, right? Like,
Yeah,
you just hope he has
exactly.
some quality of life going forward, and hopefully he had once he does officially retire, he's got some stuff set up with the league, and he'd be a great guy to be on the NHLPA or even on the Department of Player Safety. I mean, they have
Yeah,
a guy who used to just be a goon and run around fighting people running it, but how about a guy whose playing career was cut short by injuries and guys headshotting him?
I think more than anything, I think it's just the facts of the long term kind of post concussion syndromes. I don't think it's really necessarily a fact of guys taking cheap shots on him. Like I like that. I like him more in the role that it's reported he's in, which is kind of like a player consultant and whatnot, and kind of being a beacon for players to go to who are suffering similar things,
Hmm.
rather than being a guy dishing out stuff. I'd rather see him in a role of trying to help, current or future players who may be dealing with certain things, especially,
Yeah,
something like concussions that are not only severe, but there's just such a wide variety and range to them. So I think he's more better suited in a role of helping, players that are going through something similar of to what he went through.
yeah. I just meant, like, if he were to be on the Department of Player Safety, trying to reduce, the amount of cheap shots that you see throughout the league. Because
Yeah,
I
I
don't,
think if we
he's had a lot of concussions. I don't know how many of them were cheap shots, but I do know the last time he was on the NHL ice, Nathan McKinnon hit him with a shoulder right in the jaw. He didn't even have the puck, and
yeah,
that would be a
I
travesty
think
if that
if
was
we're
his
ever to
last time he
see
played.
him, get into something like that, it's gonna be years down the road. Like you don't really
No,
want
yeah,
a
yeah, no,
23 year old getting in there. Like I think you more so like it's gonna probably take at
yeah,
least 15 to 20 years before he gets there. But I think to get to that point, I think taking time of being a player consultant and trying to
yeah,
give back to players who are dealing with what he did, I think is a perfectly suited role for him
yeah,
moving
100%.
forward.
I was definitely yeah, thinking that he would do that, like, in the distant future, when he's 35, 40 or something,
Yeah,
not putting a young guy in a big role like that right away or anything.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so for the time being, he isn't actually retired. He wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, he did make that very clear, which could maybe. I mean, I still am like, again. I'm not saying I hope he retires, but I still very strongly believe that he does end up retiring. I more so just on his own accord rather than it just being fabricated and point out. But if there's ever a day, time, or whatever that he feels like he can actually try and make a run in the NHL, make a comeback, I think that would be awesome for the league, and I think that'd be huge for him. But again, yeah, one of those things that's just a wait and see, and we'll find out what happens at some point in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
With that being said, though, what do we have left? I don't really know
We
what we
got the
got left on
Jack.
the
We got
agenda.
the Jack Eichel news. It's not really
Oh
current
yeah,
news.
yeah. I don't really know what to make with that. I mean, Jack Eichel just kind of spews shit out sometimes. Like I mean, yeah, Calgary was in the mix, like they were talked about, but so was plenty of other teams.
But it
And
sounds like
as soon
Vegas and
as
Calgary were the final two right
yeah, but as
before he
soon as
went there.
Vegas was in the mix, you knew Vegas had the pieces no other team had. So you kind of knew once Vegas was rumored that that was going to happen, just because no other team could come close to what Vegas was. Not
Well,
only what they had in their system, but what they were offering.
well, so I'm trying to look around and see, because apparently uh people know what it was the Flames offered them for Jack Eichel, and a lot of people were saying that it was better than Vegas's
No,
offer. I'm
wasn't even
trying to
close.
I'm trying
I
to
do remember seeing it at the time, but I like so what it was it was Jack Eichel for with a conditional third round pick to Vegas for Alex Tuck, Peyton Krebs, a conditional first, which ended up being a first round pick, and a conditional second, which ended up being a second rounder. No team could get close to that because Vegas was already offering up Alex Tuck, who was
he
hold
hadn't
on,
broken out
one
yet.
sec. Oh, what a breakaway goal from Duclair. What speed. What speed.
The Duke.
But so the original offer, like everybody already knew, was Alex Tuck, a first and a second. And then Buffalo wanted Peyton Krebs, which was Vegas's former first round pick.
Yeah.
And again, I think even Alex Tuck, a first and a second, was still better than what any other team was off, because Alex Tuck is at the time he was a bona fide second line player who was still young, had so much potential on a great contract, and he's now blossomed into a first line player. Plus a first and a second, like no other team was coming close to that. And then, the deal breaker for Buffalo was getting Peyton Krebs in on that deal. And as soon as Vegas said, okay, we'll include him, like the deal was done and completed and approved within hours.
It was imminent that he was going to Calgary or Vegas, and they added Peyton Krebs because it was so close, and that's what tipped it in Vegas's favor. But I think Calgary was offering a much better deal.
What do you have what Calgary was offering?
I did find it. It was Matthew Tkachuk, Sean Monahan, and Connor Zary for just Eichel. And man, what a blockbuster that would have been. Who knows how Monahan would have fit in there? He's always been a wild card.
I don't think that was very good because I think Buffalo already knew that Tkachuk wasn't going to stick around there.
Yeah, and I wonder if Tkachuk not doing a sign and trade was an issue in it.
Yeah, I think that was
looks
kind
like
of
a good trade to make, right?
I think, yeah, and that deal was better, but it was on the fact of like, I think Buffalo kind of knew that Tkachuk wasn't sticking around or wasn't going to stick around at the end of his contract. And again, sure, Buffalo could have moved him, but to get Tuck, who's also like he's from the Buffalo area.
Yeah.
So he was excited to go back there. He's on a great contract still, and he wants to. He'll gladly spend his entire career there.
Yeah.
Being back home. Peyton Krebs, who hasn't worked out the best there. Like he's kind of just
not working out like a first round filler center, but
yeah, like he still brings value to the team. He doesn't bring what Buffalo thought he was going to bring, but then that first and second, like they've got,
and that's just gravy on top.
No, like they got Noah Ostlund, who's, Vegas ended up missing the playoffs. When they got Eichel, they just missed out. So that was a 16th overall pick, and they got arguably one of the best players so far to that 2022 draft, just based on pure prospect potential. And I think they ended up trading that conditional second was traded away as part of acquiring Jordan Greenway. So basically, you just look at it as Peyton Krebs, Alex Tuck, Noah Ostlund, and Jordan Greenway. For Jack Eichel, who made it clear he was never going to play another game in Buffalo again. I think he was more toxic to that team than he brought good by the end of his tenure.
I
I mean,
definitely
it's not
think
like
the management brought it on themselves a bit though, with
they
them not
did.
allowing him to get the surgeries that he wanted. Like
Yeah,
it I think management started it, and then they were both very toxic towards each other, and in the end
yeah.
it was just
It was
ruined.
just no
Throw it
side
out,
was
make the
gonna
trade.
win.
Let's get everyone a fresh start somewhere.
And I
Eh,
think that's one of those that's a win-win for both teams.
It's
Like,
the rare
you know,
win-win, and you kind of
yeah,
love to see that. Like maybe not
yeah,
with Vegas being one of the teams, but it is
yeah. I
neat when
just
both teams clearly benefit from a trade.
yeah, I just found it fun when Eichel said that. I even at the time I was like, it's Vegas or bust. Like, just from seeing Vegas's initial offer and knowing that, Matthew Tkachuk, there was no way he was going to stick around in Buffalo. It was like, he's either going to Vegas or they're holding off until the offseason to move him. Um, and I think Buffalo took the best offer that they saw fit for their future, and they took it. And I think it's going to wind out being perfect for them because, I think there's still time for Krebs to turn it around. Tuck, I mean,
Tuck looks
is doing his
fantastic
thing.
for them.
I think Tuck is
Probably
as
their next
good for
captain.
Buffalo as Eichel is good for Vegas. Just because Eichel's got to share that time with all those other guys, whereas Tuck can be the Alex Tuck, and he's putting up the big time points. And then Noah Osland is going to be a fantastic player for them in the future. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's one of those weird trades that actually ends up being a complete kind of win-win for both teams.
yeah. And when I was saying that it was clearly a better trade offer for Calgary's package for Eichel versus Vegas, I was talking in the mindset of back when the trade was being made. So you think of
Yeah, the
Alex Tuck as
overall
a middle
package
six forward,
was
not a
good.
not a first line forward like he clearly is now. He really took that next step in Buffalo. So
Yeah, the package in itself
that was
looked
almost a
good, but in
bonus.
terms of knowing
Knowing what we do now, it's even
what
better.
well, and even just knowing at the time that there's no way Kachuk was going to stick around in Buffalo. Like there was just no way that it made sense for Buffalo to roll with that deal.
On the flip side of that, if he did go to Calgary, do you think that means Johnny Gaudreau sticks around in Calgary?
No, Calgary
No,
already sealed their fate with Goudreau prior to him leaving, like a year prior to him leaving. So I that one I think was already, and he made it clear that he preferred to go kind of back closer to home and whatnot. So I don't
mm,
think if he didn't stick around after the season he had with Lindholm and Kachuk, Eichel wouldn't be the reason he would have stayed.
that's fair. Um,
But aside from that, other big news is the Ottawa Senators have finally fired head coach DJ Smith, and Jacques Martin has taken over that
yeah,
as the interim head coach, and Daniel Alfredson joined the team as an assistant coach. Yeah, this is one of those ones where I think the perfect hiring for Ottawa would have been Craig Berube. He just got fired from St. Louis. I think him coming into Ottawa, I think he would have been the perfect guy to take the reins. And we even saw,
that would have been
this big
interesting with
coaching
Tarasenko.
changeup happens, and Ottawa's on the midst of a 4-game losing streak. They hold the optional practice, and only 10 players show up to partake in it. Like, I think even though it's an optional practice, I think when you've got a brand new head coach in the mix and you're on a losing streak like this, I think every player should be present and eager to try and figure shit out. And when you've got half the team showing up, that kind of spells that there's a lot of issues going on with
I think
the
I'd put that more on
Senators.
management. I think they have to make it a mandatory practice because they went into their next game without a single regular practice under their new head coach. They had no system that they were now playing under. And like you got to tell the guys, look, I know normally right now it'd be optional, but it's a new head coach. We got to do something. And like, when you're given an optional skate, how long was it? 6 days before Christmas? There's going to be
I
some
think it's
guys who
still
won't
on.
show up.
I think it's still on the players, though. You know what? Because now that separates
But you can't be
those
mad at them when
10.
you make it optional.
No,
Like,
but
if you
that
want them
that
to be
clearly
there, you got to
shows.
make it a regular practice.
But that clearly shows the 10 guys that are committed to the team and committed to getting better and winning, as opposed to the guys that aren't bought into the system. So now you at least know the guys that you've you've got that are committed to Ottawa and committed to winning and committed to being there and riding the ship, as opposed to the guys that are more so just there to get their paycheck and play hockey rather than being part of the solution. They're fine of staying stagnant where the team is. At least you know the guys that are committed to the team, type of thing. And that's not to say the
I
guys that didn't
I
show up don't care about the
I was
team
gonna
and don't
say,
want to
I think
win,
it's
but
fine to say that the 10 guys have drive, but I've seen some people online trying to, figure out who the players weren't there and rake them over the coals, because I think it's very unfair for them, for how much hockey they play, and how much time they're on the road, to be like, all right, today you get an off day if you want, and then for them to take it and get a bunch of shit for it. That just doesn't quite feel right to me.
those are the guys that can't complain when they're, if they're first or second line or top defenseman, they can't complain when they're demoted to the third or fourth liner off power play or penalty kill.
I
Because like
definitely would if my coach didn't give me anything to work with. Some of those guys might have never seen him in person before their first game.
but how do you not show up to the practice then though? Like why
I
why wouldn't you show up then? Like I get it. It's like they're on the road, they're traveling, but it's like again, just because they're athletes doesn't mean they're above everything else. Like it's an optional practice for an hour and you choose not to show up. Like you can't expect to get all this and be like, okay, well, like I don't know the system of the
well,
coach. Like you
I think
could
it's
have
more the
because
coach can
all those
expect the
other
team to
players
care
did.
about him when he
No,
hasn't done anything there yet. Like
no, but it's like
he needs to set a precedent, and I think he came into Ottawa looking weak.
why, but it's also he came in the day of that practice. So it's like he didn't really even like that. The management set that because they're like, coaches just coming in. He probably doesn't have a whole scheme, and practice schedule ready and whatnot. Yeah, like it's going to be
Maybe
coming
not.
in it's just kind of laying the foundation of because again he's only interim head coach, but it's like he's coming in setting the
True.
groundwork and the foundation. You can either come and be a part of that, or you can sit on the side. And so the guys that show up, I think, are the guys that saw that elevated ice time, that extra looks on the power play and penalty count, and rightfully so, because those are the guys that said, hey, you know what? I could have a day off and hang out and do nothing, or I could show up and, introduce myself to the new coach and get to know him and try and be a part of what he's trying to build. And so I commend those players because those are the guys that are committed to trying to turn the wheels rather than being like, oh, you know what, I'll show up to the next mandatory practice of the game and then meet him and try and get things situated. So I just give respect to those players that
Yeah.
always take the road of, you know what, it's an optional practice, but and I'm not even including injuries. Like injuries are if a guy's dealing with an injury, that's a whole
That's a whole different thing.
different thing. But the guys that are healthy and show up and are trying to be a part of righting the ship, because Ottawa, like they're in one of the worst positions in the league.
It's
Like they've
rough
got
over there.
all this star power. They can't win. Every free agent signing sucks for them. They're losing draft picks. Like, you want the guys that are going to be committed to even going on optional practices and wanting to be a part of trying to create something better for the team, to say the least.
Yeah, it felt weirdly passive to me from management.
Well, we know Ottawa
Just
doesn't have great management, though.
yeah, just
Like
just
at some point, the players got
how
to step
aggressive
up.
management often is in the NHL, and it's you need to know your system so you can beat the other guy's system. It feels like a strange lapse of judgment, but then again, I guess you're going to get that with firing a head coach that you've had for however many years, a long time, and just having an interim coach now. It's not even the full new guy yet. So
I wouldn't be surprised if, come next year we see Martin doesn't stick around and we see maybe they bring in someone new, or maybe it's something like a Daniel Alfredson takes the reins. Like, he's already now coming as an assistant coach. If he takes the rest of the season to kind of learn the room and the group and the players and whatnot, we could see a position where Alfredson takes the reins as the head coach, and that could be huge for Ottawa.
yeah, that would be absolutely massive.
Like,
Over
we've
there,
seen St.
that would be
Louis
great
do
for
wonders
teams, the
with
fan base's
Montreal.
morale, even like
Yeah. So there is bright spots for Ottawa right now. I mean, Sens fans, like, you're going through a dark time. You're going to continue. Like, Ottawa's not making the playoffs. They're not going on an incredible run. Andrew Hammond's not around. So I think it's more now. So it's just trying to build towards next year. And again, it's just that's the same thing we said before. It's like, oh, next year they'll be good, and then oh, they're not good next year. So I think at least if you've got a
I feel like a
solidified
lot of
head
people
coach,
say that to the point where they just start writing teams off, but like no team rebuilds forever. Like even Buffalo is going to be good at some
you're
point.
Arizona, you're rebuilding for
Well,
10 years.
That's different. They're rebuilding an arena, not a team. So
No, I don't even. It's at the point now with the Coyotes. I don't even take the whole arena thing into consideration now. Like,
that's their identity.
They've
though.
had,
you have to. They've been looking for an arena for like 15 years. Like
that doesn't matter. Look at all the great players they've brought in that they've just turned around and shipped out because they're like, all right, it's we brought in these guys. It's not immediately working, so we're giving up. Like, Connor Garland was one of the few guys that made it very clear he wanted to be a part of the Coyotes long term, and they're like, nah. Like, I mean, they got a first round pick that's going to become a great player out of it, Dylan Gunther. But again, it's like you had at the time, like, I know he's not anymore, but Oliver Ekman-Larsson was a great defenseman, and their captain, they decided to move on because they're like, you know what, we're gonna retool a little bit. Like, I mean, now they're looking better this year, but I mean, like, it's been a 10-year-long rebuild. Like, it shouldn't take that long, regardless, because the whole arena thing is only as of the last 2-3 years. You had the full.
That's only
7-8 years
current
before
arena. That's only their current arena problem, though. It was back in like 2008 when they knew that they were gonna have to find a new place, and then they found whatever arena they played in for a while there. I believe they shared it with an NBA team, but it was always a rocky situation. There was a time in 2009 where it was very similar to last year, where they didn't know where they were going to play, and they got lucky and ended up sharing it.
They would still be in Gila River Arena if the rebuild went well and they had a competent NHL bringing in fans the way they were before. They would have been just fine.
Some teams have a management issue. Some have a coach. Some even it's players. Theirs has just always been
It's always been management. Yeah,
like,
it's always just been management.
Some are bad teams. Like Buffalo has been a bad team for the last at least 5 years. Arizona's a bad business. Like that's the difference. That's why nobody talks about Buffalo folding as a franchise, but people talk about it with Arizona.
Yeah.
Because it starts from the top, and it's been bad there consistently from the top, which is too bad. Because they have, like you said, with a lot of those players, they've had some good players come through. They should have turned a bit of a corner a couple times, and it's never really been put together because they keep selling on the rebuild, and then, well, now the franchise is worth even less somehow.
Yeah. With that being said, though, do we have anything else really to?
Just a couple things. I'm gonna fire through a couple of these rather quickly.
Okay. How long is it gonna take?
This one will take like 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Yeah, I'm basically just like reading these off, honestly.
Okay, I'm gonna step out for like a minute here quickly. If you just want to, after that, just roll into the like the current stats leaders,
Sure. I got that
and then
right here and ready.
okay, perfect. And then once you're done wrapping up with the end of that, then I'll be right here, ready to go.
Time for Braden's Stats Corner. All right.
Oh, hold on. Do that again.
It's time for Braden's Stats Corner.
There we go.
I was busy expecting the golf clap. I wasn't ready for the air horns.
The air horn's better for it.
All right. Despite saying that, I'm actually going to get to some other stuff before the stats. The Seattle Kraken acquire Thomas Tatar from the Colorado Avalanche for only a 2024 fifth-round pick. That's pretty cheap for Tatar. He's a good player, but just wasn't putting it together with the Avs team. So we'll see how he does with the Kraken. They've been good at acquiring depth pieces and kind of helping them work up the lineup in their system. David Pasternak will not have a hearing following his hit on Lindgren of the New York Rangers. Personally, I think, I don't know if a suspension was necessary, but I think he probably should have got 5. That was, oh, you know what? I think he did get 5 for that hit, actually. I believe it was a 5-minute major for boarding. So, you know what? I think that's about what it should be. A 1 or 2 game suspension wouldn't be the worst, but they don't want to.
He did get 5.
Yeah, he did get 5. He didn't get the suspension, which makes sense, especially since he's a very marketable player. But what can you say?
Also, I mean, I know this was reported already. I know like Alex Freeman reported it, but after that Thomas Tatar trade, the Colorado Avalanche now have $3.850 million in cap space. After that trade, which is the exact current cap hit of Elias Lindholm with the Calgary Flames, who has been linked to Colorado in the past. So Colorado is kind of, I mean, not officially, but they are kind of labeled as like the favorite to land Elias Lindholm should he be moved out of Calgary, just because, I mean, that's what Colorado's been missing ever since they won their cup. Like Kadri left, and they've tried to find guys to fill that second line
center role
void, and it's just, last year didn't work. Ryan Johansson just hasn't worked out in that role. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lindholm is where they're kind of looking at now, especially now that they have the cap space fully open and available to bring in a guy like him.
Yeah. So that'd be crazy to see Lindholm go to the Avs.
Yeah. Unreal. Like that team would get so much better.
Did we already talk about no, we already talked about Kaprizov getting his OT winner.
Yeah.
The only thing I have left before we get into the stat leaders is 2 days ago, the Buffalo Sabres got beat 9-4 by Columbus. And then tonight, they beat the Leafs 9-3 in their next game. So,
yeah,
I believe I saw it was the first time since, I want to say, the Red Wings in 83 that a team has gotten beaten while having 9 goals scored on them, and then put up 9 goals in their next game.
Yeah.
Matthews also, in his post-game interview, said it was the worst game since he's been on the team. So that's not looking good over in Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they'll be fine, but yeah, that is a tough go for the Leafs for sure.
Yeah. Last thing I got here is just that the Penguins power play is back. For so long, they absolutely sucked this year. I believe Crosby has like 5 power play points in his last 2 or 3 games alone. Like they're scoring like we thought their power play would this year. So
yeah, it's starting to click for them again.
it's just like San Jose at the start of the year. You can't underperform that hard for 82 games. NHL seasons are
Exactly.
too long to be that insanely out of place for that long.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have anything before I get into the stat leaders here?
No, you're good to run with it.
All right. So these stats will be a little out of date because these two top players had I believe a 3 and a 4 point night. Um, Nikita Kucherov is in first in the league for points with 54, followed by Nathan MacKinnon at 48 and JT Miller at 45. For goals, 25 for Austin Matthews, first to get to 25 this year. In second, we got Brock Besser with 23, and in third, Nikita Kucherov with 22. For plus minus, we got Quinn Hughes at 25, his D partner Philip Hronik with 20 in second, and seemingly out of nowhere in third, we got Dylan DeMello from Winnipeg with 19. Oh, he's also tied with Josh Morrissey at 19. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
assume they're D partners, but I don't know.
Yeah, they are.
Well, there you go. Two really, really defensively responsible D lines in Vancouver and Winnipeg. For top of the league in save percentage, we got a 933 from Aiden Hill and from Jeremy Swayman, so they are in joint first. And then we'll call it joint third, I guess, a 926 for both Jonathan Quick and Cam Talbot.
Yeah.
Not a lot of the names I would have expected up there for this year. But
Yeah, no, it's a lot of different names this year, but that's good to see. It's good to see a little diversity happening between the goalies.
For leading the league in wins, we got Thatcher Demko alone up top with 16 wins. And then we got both with 15, Connor Hellebuck of the Winnipeg Jets and Alexander Gorgiev of the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah. It's another guys you don't fully expect to see up at the top.
Yeah, it's man, it's wild. Connor Hellebuck, it's so weird because he's been a top 5 goalie in the league for at least 5 years now, and it still somehow feels like he's underrated. Like,
Yeah.
it's always either him or Vasilevsky in the last like 7 years to be leading the league in shots against. It's like those two fighting for most shots against, and then it's like a drop off of like 300 shots for the next guy. Generally, like they both play so many games and in systems that allow so many shots that it's really incredible how much work they do and how much work they've consistently done since like 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is completely we're done with the stats leaders segment here now, but do you think Hellebuck, if because he just re-signed with Winnipeg, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think if he plays out at least the majority of that extension, maybe not the last year, do you think he ends up getting his jersey retired in Winnipeg?
Most likely, if he plays out the majority of that contract in his career there, most likely he does.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I love getting people's thoughts on goalies in particular, but also just what players you think teams will retire their jerseys.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have a very high bar for what it is. Like, if you ask a Montreal fan, anybody who's less than Guy Lafleur should never be in the rafters. Like they are very tough on their guys, letting them in over there. There's a lot of people who don't think Carey Price should have his jersey put up in the rafters, and I think personally, I think that's insane. But
yeah,
he technically, yes, he did not win them a cup, so I guess you can make that.
Yeah, that's the only knock he's got it. against them.
Yeah. Although my response to that would be he took the like the 18th seed team in the league and carried them to the cup final.
Yeah, exactly
So he
right.
did his fucking best.
He did what he could. Given the team that was in front of him.
Yeah, and the team that's been in front of him for the last while, I don't know if he ever played in front of or behind a point per game player.
No, he never
Like,
did. He never once had a point per game player during that season in front of him on the team. So that speaks a lot to what he had to do in himself to really kind of carry the team and be the backbone of them during his time there. With that being said, do we have anything else left on the agenda here?
I got one or two short things here. Well, you know what? We can make a game out of this one. I will give you. There is 6 answers. I will give you 7 guesses because you know a lot about hockey.
Okay. Well,
I have a
depends
list.
what it is.
I have a list of the 6 longest active NHL head coaches with the longest tenure in the league. You don't have to put them in order if you don't want to. If you think you know the order, go for it. But just name these head coaches that are in the top 6 that have been with their team the longest.
Ooh. Okay. I don't have to do them in order.
No, just get all 6, and then I'll go over the order, and it's also got their first season with the team. The 2 most recent ones on this list, I'm surprised how recent they actually are, because like the 6 longest tenured, you figured they might, be from a while ago. They're not that far away.
Yeah, because I do know
in the league.
I do know that that Sheldon Keefe is on that list.
Yeah, he is number 6. He is tied with number 5 for the newest. They were both in 1920.
Yeah. Okay. So he's one of the 6?
Yes.
Okay. Just thinking off the top of my head. Well, obviously John Cooper is way longer than any other coach.
Yeah, the second
That
longest is 15-16, and then John Cooper at first is 12-13. He's been there for over a decade at this point.
Well, if Sheldon Keefe's on there, then Mike Sullivan has to be.
Mike Sullivan is second in 2015-16.
I was going to say, because he came in the year that Pittsburgh won their first of the back-to-backs. Todd McClellan has to be on there then, because he was there before Sheldon Keefe.
He is listed 5 on this list, but he's also got the same first season as Sheldon Keefe, 1920.
Oh, okay. No, but I mean, like Sheldon Keefe was brought in midpoint.
That might be why they're ordered that way then.
Yeah, because I know McClellan was definitely before.
So what's that? I just need in the middle.
2 more. Rod Brind'Amour has to be on that list.
Rod Brind'Amour is 4th.
Yeah, he's been there for a while. And who would be the last one? I'm just kind of rattling through teams in my head and thinking. Every team I come to is like, damn, they fired a head coach recently.
I imagine as soon as you get to this team, you're like, oh yeah.
No, he got fired. Jared Bednar with Colorado.
Yep, Jared.
He's been there for time.
16-17.
Yeah, he's been there for time.
Nice job. He goes 6 for 6, and in a timely fashion, no less.
Yeah, because I was kind of going through and I was just thinking of every team. I was like, no, every team has fired their head coach recently. Like the only other guy I could think of that was maybe in there was Lindy Ruff with New Jersey, but I think even he was still within the last like three years or so. Like there's been a lot of turnover. Like it's not a good time to be a head coach in the league. Like there's really no job security when it comes to
There
them right
really
now.
isn't. Like you have to
They
have a
get
pretty
paid
insane
good,
resume
but
to be able to have job security. And even then, like one bad season is all it takes.
yeah.
Do you have anything else really?
I don't have anything. No, we kind of got through everything everything that was on the agenda, so I'm pretty good and clear.
All right. Then I guess for our last thing, I will just leave us with an NHL player got his first NHL goal a couple days ago. Goes by the name of Angus Crookshank.
Oh yeah, the guy in Ottawa. Yeah,
And
what a
I just
name.
wanted to shout out, what a baller fucking name, dude.
Yeah, what a name
Angus
that is.
Crookshank. Dude should have been a hockey player in the 40s.
Yeah, that's a pretty unreal name to have playing in the show like that.
That's right up there with Dick Clapper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
one of those.
Chaz
That's just
Lucius when he
a
gets into the
hockey
league.
name. That's just a born and raised hockey name right there.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, so congrats to him. Other than that, I don't really have anything else. I know, within a couple days here, we're kind of waiting for a better time to record it, but we will have some World Juniors content coming out. Going to be a great tournament. Will be kind of tough to keep an eye on all the games just due to our location and time zone. A lot of the games take place very early on in the day, like we're talking around 5 a.m. ish in that area. So it will be kind of tough to watch every game and have full breakdowns of each, but we're still gonna have the majority of the content from it and all the headlines and breaking news in it. So we'll have lots of World Juniors content coming out for all those that are as obsessed with the tournament as we are. I know, it's one of my favorite times of year for hockey. It's one of the, if not the best, annual hockey tournament to take place every year. So yeah, we'll have lots of content coming out surrounding that.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good to get some of the coverage from that, especially with Will Smith playing in them. I'm really excited to see some of him. I haven't seen any of his stuff other than the highlights they played at the draft.
Yeah, he's going to be a big part of the American team. Probably, in my opinion, probably the favorites going into this tournament. I think it's kind of between them and Sweden are the two favorites heading into the tournament. If Canada wants to three-peat, going to be very tough. It is still possible, but I think my early prediction is it probably should be a Sweden USA finals.
Yeah.
But that's a great part about the World Juniors is anything can happen. Slovakia almost knocked out Canada last year. Like no one would have thought that amidst Bedard's record-breaking tournament, and
Yeah.
Slovakia still almost sent him out. So anything can happen in it, and we will have all of that for you guys. But once again, thanks for listening to another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. Again, if you want to join in on any of the conversations with us or throw us any questions or requests you may have, you can always find us over on Instagram or Twitter /X at SEU Hockey. A lot more active on the Instagram the Twitter as of right now as opposed to the Instagram. But in due time, we will be very active on both of them. So make sure to hop in and be one of the first people to be a part of this journey with us. And again, any requests or questions you have for us, we will make sure to answer them, whether it's through the platforms there or right here on the podcast. We will not ignore you one bit. With that being said, Merry Christmas to all. I think we forgot to say that because
Yeah,
this will
Merry Christmas if you're
be the
listening to this at
last.
Christmas time.
Yeah, this will be the last one before the holidays here, or happy holidays to all of those who don't participate in the traditional festivities. We include all people. We talk about Vegas, so that kind of shows that we like to include all people. But yeah, with that being said, thanks to everybody for listening to another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast, and we will catch you guys very soon. Not next Friday. Before then, we will be back very soon.